Welcome back for more Saw Story. Grab a drink, take a seat, double check that you're safe, and get ready for 5 true scary stories found on Reddit. This happened to me last summer, and it still gives me chills to think about. That day, I went to the thrift store with my boyfriend, and as we were heading back home, I suggested we pick up some sushi for dinner at our nearby grocery store. As my boyfriend works night shifts, he was already feeling tired, and suggested that I go to the grocery store while he goes back home. We live in the busy part of our city where the mall, library, city hall, restaurants, major stores, etc. are all a couple minutes away from our home. Not to mention, I live in a relatively safe city with little crime, so I was more than alright with going by myself. Now, I truly wish I hadn't. As we parted ways, I was walking through the parking lot of the grocery store when a stocky man, about 6'5", probably in his early to mid-40s, approached me. With a wide smile and wider eyes, he said, "Wow, you are stunning." I simply thanked him and tried walking away. He cut me off, saying, "I have never seen someone as beautiful as you before." I was immediately filled with dread. I looked back, hoping my boyfriend was still in sight. No luck. It may seem like an exaggeration to be wary of a person right off the bat, but having read and watched true crime and horror stories for years, coupled with having extreme social anxiety, and being a smaller woman with zero fighting skills, I have always sided with caution. Not to mention, with his eyes and smile, he honestly reminded me of a buffer Art the Clown from Terrifier, minus the clown costume and lack of talking. The man proceeded to rope me into a one-sided conversation, asking me my name and how old I was. I gave him a fake name and told him I was 19. He laughed and said, unnaturally excitedly, "That's good. That means you're a true woman now." What the hell, I thought to myself. My boyfriend later told me I should have lied and said I was under 18, as this may have made the man uninterested. From the red flags I got from the man, I seriously doubt that. He then stuck his phone out, asking for my phone number. I refused, saying I had a boyfriend. "And I just want to talk to you," he said. I repeated that I had a boyfriend. It was unnerving how his smile never wavered, despite showing that I wasn't interested. Like he wasn't understanding, or he just didn't care. He sounded confused, but he was still grinning. He stepped towards me and asked, "So you don't want to cheat on your boyfriend?" As if to say, "What do you mean you don't want to go out with a scary man that's double your age?" Speechless, I stepped back and gave pleading looks to the people walking in and out of the grocery store. After the last time I refused, his smile suddenly dropped while he placed his hand on my back, saying in a now cold, firm tone, "Come on, I have a nice car I can drive you around in. Let's check out one of these restaurants." Seeing a person's entire demeanor change with the flip of a switch was something I only saw in movies and TV shows, and seeing it in this situation terrified me. Going into panic mode, I somehow found the courage to push myself off of him and almost shouted, "Sorry, I really have to go buy my groceries." Noticing that people were staring at us, his sick smile reappeared, and he said with a low voice, "Alright then, I'll see you later," using my fake name. I practically ran into the grocery store with so much relief. I glanced back, hoping to see him get in his car to try and get his license plate number, only to see the man just standing in the middle of the parking lot, leering at me. I called my boyfriend while in the store, but it kept going to voicemail. I figured he was sleeping, and I was seriously scared to walk back home. I managed to calm myself down while in the store, figuring the man must have been long gone, yet I was on high alert the entire walk home. It was starting to get dark, but I figured if I just stayed cautious and walked quickly I would be fine. I couldn't have been more wrong. When I was approaching the crosswalk that led to my street, I heard a car pulling up to the sidewalk, followed by a sickeningly familiar voice barking, "Hey, hi, hey." My heart dropped into my stomach. I glanced sideways at the car. With his unmistakable, now malicious-looking grin plastered on his face, the man's upper body was leaning out of his car window as if he was trying to reach me. Oh no, I thought to myself. He tauntingly called out, "So where's your boyfriend?" while cackling. From everything I've learned from true crime and horror stories, I figured it was best not to acknowledge the man. My mind racing while trying to appear composed, I knew I couldn't lead him to my house, and turning back to go to the mall or stores may have given away that I was terrified and trying to escape. Bless whoever designed my neighborhood, as the city's rec center was conveniently right next to my complex. I ignored him and casually crossed the street, quickening my pace as I headed into the rec center. I tried not to look back, scared that I would see the man running up on me with his wide grin, but I made it into the rec center and finally looked behind me. I assumed the man would have followed me in, or waited for me in his car. Instead, he sped away down a street opposite from my house. With so much relief, I called my boyfriend, who finally woke up to my call. I was on the verge of breaking down, but managed to fill him in on everything. He rushed to the rec center, and after helping me calm down, we walked home. My boyfriend asked if I got the man's license plate number, to which I felt like an idiot. Not only was it too dark, but I was too consumed with fear for my own life that it didn't even cross my mind at the time. At the very least, I called the police, giving them a description of the man and the make and model of his car. They said they would do what they could, but I haven't heard back from them. I haven't seen that man since, not in person at least, because I still see that man's smile in my dreams, haunting me for countless nights, plaguing my mind. Thinking about the sadistic, glaring look he had in his car reminds me that he was overjoyed to realize that I was alone and vulnerable that night. My seemingly safe city isn't as safe as I thought. At the same time, I feel so grateful that the man never found out where I live. But for all I know, he could still be lurking around, trying to harm other women, like he tried to that night he almost trailed me home. For mine and the women in my city's sake, I hope we never have to find out. So I'm 25, and recently I started going to this bar in my city. I've never really been into the bar setting before now, and I've only gone a few times, usually by myself after work. This past weekend, I went to a bar in the downtown area of the city in which I live. I sat down like normal and ordered a cocktail. Around 20 minutes went by, and this younger guy came and sat down next to me. He had dark brown hair and glasses and appeared to be in his mid-20s. He didn't say anything to me, just ordered a beer and a double shot and sat quietly sipping his beer. After a few more minutes, he finally spoke to me. He said, "So, do you come here often?" I told him that it was my first time and I don't normally go to bars. He asked me other questions, including if I was by myself. I was just happy to be getting the attention from someone, and he honestly didn't seem like a bad person at all. We ended up talking for a while over several cocktails, and then he paid his tab and he said, "Want to continue this over at my place?" I thought about it and ended up saying, why not? And I went with him to his apartment. Once at his apartment, he offered me a seat on his sofa and began to immediately feed his fish. Yes, he started to give off serious Dahmer vibes at this point, but hadn't done anything alarming yet. He offered me a drink and I accepted, and he went into his kitchen and came back a couple minutes later with 2 mixed drinks that he said was just vodka and Sprite. He turned on YouTube on his PlayStation and put on some old R&B from the 90s and started asking me more questions. He started by asking what I did for a living, what my hobbies were, etc., but eventually his questions got much more personal and sexual. Eventually, I got really tired and became extremely lightheaded. I slumped over on the arm of the sofa, and when I woke up, I felt dazed and confused, and I was still on his sofa. Then I saw him, standing over me, just watching me, with a knife in his hand. I was so out of it that I don't even remember feeling scared. I couldn't really react. I just remember saying, "Don't stab me, please," to which he replied, "I'm not going to, I was just playing around." He then set the knife down and helped me up off the sofa. Then he quickly called me an Uber and I got a ride back to my parents' house. I have not seen him again since and never even exchanged contact info with him. I didn't file a police report either since I can't really prove anything and I know the cops in my city won't do anything. I just really hope I never run into this weirdo again. Please people, if you go out to bars or clubs, be careful who you trust and always go with a friend or someone you know. Almost a year ago, I was fresh out of college and had just moved into an apartment with my middle school bestie and her fiancé. We were all between the ages of 23 and 25. My best friend and I had a long and great relationship with only a few rocky periods. I didn't know her fiancé that well, but I had met him a couple of times. He came off as kind of rude and loud, but mostly nice enough. I let a lot of little annoying behaviors slide because she was so in love with him. I really just wanted to spend time with my best friend. However, over the course of a few months, I slowly discovered that she was trapped in an abusive relationship with the most classic example of malignant narcissism imaginable. Their fights were really just him raging at her while she cried, and they escalated to the point where he was completely trashing the apartment, breaking her phone and laptop, hiding her car keys, blocking the door, and grabbing her arm so hard she had bruises, all while hurling out the worst insults he could fathom at the top of his lungs for hours. This man is about a foot taller and 100 pounds heavier than me, so there was nothing I could do other than give her a ride somewhere else away from him until the next day. He didn't like it when I did that. Once it reached the point of physical harm against her, I put my foot down and demanded that he move out or I would call the cops. He wasn't technically signed onto the lease, so I could have him kicked out easily. He begged for time to find a new place. He was extremely drunk and high the night he hurt her, and he promised to stay sober until he moved. Not wanting to escalate things, I agreed on the condition that nothing like that ever happen again. My friend and her fiancé broke up soon after that. 3 weeks passed and everything was going great. The ex-fiancé had found a new place and was moving out soon. He was also in training for a new job, and while still loud and inconsiderate, he hadn't caused any more problems so far. On this day, I was getting ready for bed early. I had an important meeting the next morning. I put on some comfy pajamas, locking my bedroom door before I changed out of habit. My bestie was out working, and it's just me upstairs in my bed, and the ex-fiancé downstairs yelling on the phone about something. I tune him out and try to sleep. He's moving out next week anyway. Then, my chest started rattling from the booming footfalls up the stairs to my room, waking me from my sleep. My eyes snap open to see my bedroom doorknob rattling back and forth. Locked. He lets out a yell of pure malice and bangs on my door, screaming my name, and is so slurred he sounds like he's trying to impersonate a lizard man. The hinges aren't looking so good. We lived in a crappy, cheap apartment with thin doors. I have to do something before he breaks open the door, right? I say the only thing I can think of. What the hell? Suddenly, the banging and screaming stops. My doorknob falls still. After a terrifying moment of silence, he says flatly, "Open the door, bud. Just come and open the door." I still laugh about that one. Like after all that, I'd just walk over and open up. Instead, I grabbed my essentials and jumped out the window. I was on the second floor, but we lived on a hill, so the fall wasn't quite that high. Still, I managed to fall wrong. I hobbled as quickly as I could to my car and peeled away. Then I called my best friend and warned her not to go home. We made plans for her to stay with a friend after she got off work. I made it to the friend's house and passed out for a few hours. I woke up to a call from my bestie. He had traveled all the way to her workplace with a knife and broke in. He attacked her and held the knife up to her special needs client's throat and said he'd kill him in front of her. Thank God a coworker overheard everything in another room and was able to call the police in time for everyone to come out alive. My bestie also said that he was on the phone with her while he was banging on my door, and he said he was going to kill me and make her listen. I was totally alone in the apartment with him, sleeping upstairs in my bed. If I hadn't locked my door that night, would I even still be alive? If I had left my car keys downstairs, would I have been able to get away? When I returned to my apartment the next morning, my bedroom door was completely kicked in. My belongings were scattered everywhere, and the large butcher knives were missing from the kitchen, instead sitting in the corner of the hallway to my room.
Many years ago, I used to work night shift at a hotel in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. During the tourist season, it wasn't so bad, mostly families and stuff. We had on-site security then too. However, in the off-season, the winter months were different. The cheap weekly rates we'd offer attracted a lot of creepy people. The idea was supposed to be to make money in the off-season by renting to what is known as snowbirds, older, retired people who came to the beach for a month or more through the winter. However, it did not always work out that way. The cheap rates made it possible for a less than desirable element to become long-term residents. While working there, I discovered more than my fair share of meth labs, broken up physical assaults, and more during the winter months. Working third shift, I would meet some very interesting people. The cold weather would mean some homeless people would come in and get warm and grab a cup of free coffee. I wasn't supposed to let them in, but it's not in me to be cruel. I would let them grab a cup of coffee and get warm for a minute, as long as they didn't cause trouble. Night shift in the winter made for some crazy and sometimes creepy experiences. I have a lot of these stories, but this is the one that stands out because it did not end well for me. I had a great night up to this point. I had gone to an indie wrestling show with my best friend before work. In fact, I had agreed to come in an hour early the next night for the young lady that worked second shift in exchange for her working an hour late for me on this night so I could enjoy the wrestling show. Ironically enough, I met Terry Funk that night, a wrestling legend known for his hardcore and bloody matches. Little did I know that I was about to experience this kind of violence for real. I was supposed to be there at midnight due to her working over an hour for me. I normally came in at 11 p.m. When I got there, I counted the register and she briefed me on her shift as to what had happened as per usual. As she was leaving, my friend, we will call him Andrew, pulled up. He worked second shift maintenance at this hotel and the other two hotels our company owned. He would regularly stop by after work and go grab us some food, and we would play World of Warcraft on our laptops after eating for a while since business was so slow. He was just getting my money and order for food and getting ready to leave. I was excited, telling him about how much fun I had at the wrestling show and was showing him my Terry Funk t-shirt I was so proud of. I had just walked into the back office to put the shirt up when I heard the doorbell indicating a customer had entered. It is true what they say, ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. I had turned around when I heard someone say something loudly, but I still couldn't make out what they had said. I had just reached the doorway when I saw Andrew just fall down in front of me. The next thing I know, a guy walks around the corner and punches me in the head with a short steel pipe in his hand. It staggered me, and I went to one knee. The next thing I know, he hits me in the head with the pipe. Then I hear the other guy, who I hadn't noticed to this moment, saying he got away and got a cop, and they ran out the door. I was finally able to get to my feet. I tried to call the police from the phone in the back office, but it was having issues. I slammed it in frustration. I was hurting and scared. I was really freaking out. Suddenly I realized that they could come back in, so I ran and locked the door. I didn't know where Andrew had gone, and that worried me. I called 911 about this time. Blood had started pouring down my head. I told the operator I had been attacked and needed an officer and an ambulance. I then called the other hotel we ran to let the night manager named Travis know what had happened. He thought I was messing with him at first, because when we got bored we would prank each other. I finally convinced him I was not joking. He was going to lock up and come down. Finally, the cops and ambulance pulled up and I opened the door. It was at this time that I found out, after they sucker punched him and knocked him down, Andrew was able to amazingly jump over the desk and escape just as a cop was driving by, which he ran to flag down for help. I ended up in the hospital emergency room, where I had to have 10 staples put in my scalp, and they gave me morphine for pain. I had no way to get home after being treated, but the doctor and nurses took pity on me and paid for a cab. My plan was to go back to work, because this was December and Christmas was coming. I had 3 kids and needed all the hours I could get. When I got back to the hotel, the IT guy Ted was there with his wife Barbara, who also worked at the front desk. She was shocked to see me. She thought I would still be in the hospital. I thought I had only been hit in the head once, after being punched. The video which Ted was pulling up for the police showed a different story. After I went to one knee, the guy had hit me, not just one time, but 10 total times. I kept trying to grab the pipe and get up for some reason. I do not remember that. I guess I was out on my feet. He just kept punching me and hitting me with the pipe, till his friend tells him Andrew got away and then got the cops, and the 2 of them run out. I was given a free room at the other hotel we own, and Ted and Barbara gave me a lift there as I was in no condition to drive due to the morphine. They also gave me a paid week off to heal. When I returned, they switched me over to the other hotel on night shift for a month just in case they might be after me in particular. We never found out why they chose to attack me. The police thought it might have been a failed strong-arm robbery due to Andrew getting away and me not just going down. It shook me up though, not knowing. Even though I was at our other hotel when I came back to work, I was still very nervous. Every time the door chimed, I tensed up. I couldn't afford to quit though. As I said, I had 3 kids I was supporting. They never caught the guys as far as I know. A detective asked me if any of them looked familiar. I never got a great look at them as it all happened so fast. I had seen the video, which wasn't the best quality. Even so, 2 of them looked very familiar, like it could be them. I pointed them out to the detective, and he asked me how sure I was. I told him honestly, like 85%. He then yelled and asked me if I wanted someone to go to jail for attempted murder on 85% certainty. I was stunned into silence. I was the victim. I was attacked for no reason, and he is yelling at me like it's my fault. I was too busy being attacked to get a good look at them. I no longer work at a hotel or night shift, and I am glad, because it is just too dangerous in this area. This story will haunt me forever.
This happened a few years ago. My aunt and uncle own a restaurant, and one Saturday they were moving from their old location to the new one. My aunt, uncle, future husband, cousin, and about 10 other people, mostly employees, were helping in the move since there was a bunch of large equipment. We were all at the old restaurant packing things, tying them down when we ran out of ratchet straps. I offered to drive to my parents' house, about a 30-minute drive, to get more straps from my dad. Because everyone else was busy, I went alone. On the way back, I got a call from my aunt saying that they all were going to take a load to the new location and to meet them there. Since I didn't know how to get to the new place, I pulled over in a park to put in the address. From the road, you aren't able to see the parking lot at all because of the trees. The only odd thing that I didn't notice at the time was on this sunny weekend day, there were no other cars in the parking lot. I pulled into a parking spot and immediately grabbed my phone to put in the address. For whatever reason, I didn't put it in park like I normally do, which unlocks the doors. Less than a minute after I looked down, I heard and felt a huge hit to the car. I looked up to see the face of a man staring through my car window. I remember looking at him for so long, I thought it was odd how I couldn't see the color of his eyes because of how big his pupils were. It's important to note that I was in a small SUV and he had to bend over to look in the window. A second later, he was pulling the door handle so hard I thought it was going to come off. I was also confused why the door wasn't unlocked like it normally would be when I'm in a parking spot. He got visibly upset that the door wasn't opening, so he started banging the side of his fist against the window, swinging his whole arm over and over. Getting progressively more pissed, he moved to the door handle of the back seat, and at this point I was so scared of him getting in the car, I grabbed and unsheathed the camping knife that I had in my door. When I looked at him, he stopped attacking the car, saw the knife, and smiled. I think it was right then I realized that he didn't want money. He wanted to kill me. I knew that if he got in the car, it was going to be over for me, even with the knife. He was way bigger than me, and hitting the car so hard I was amazed that the windows held. The man moved to the back window, the car rocking back and forth every time he bashed it. The panic got worse because I knew the doors weren't opening for some reason, but maybe the trunk would. Since it was an SUV, if he got in the trunk, he could just climb over the back seats to get to me. He hit against the back window with both of his balled-up fists and was yelling something I couldn't understand. It was right then I realized that I could slam it in reverse. I dropped the knife in my lap, hit my gear shift into R, grabbed the wheel, and put my foot down. I still have no idea if I hit him or if he jumped out of the way. I didn't look back. I put it in drive and peeled out of the parking lot. It was my first time ever ignoring a stop sign. To this day, I still have no idea why I didn't put it in park.
I hope you enjoyed these 5 true scary stories from Reddit. Please show some love and drop a like, comment below, subscribe for more, and share this video with your friends. I'll be posting new videos every Thursday and Saturday. That's all for today. I'll see you on the next one.